Well, sticking with baseball, I'd like to show this graph, although you can take out of it what you wish. But I've compared three eras in baseball, starting in 1920. 1920 was the year that Babe Ruth joined the Yankees. He hit 54 home runs that year, which, again, at the time, was unheard of. He hit 54 home runs. Who had the home run record before Babe Ruth hit 54? Maybe? Great $64 million question. It was Babe Ruth. He had 29 for the Red Sox, and that's why he was converted to an outfielder and why the Yankees wanted him so much. Anyway, between 1920 and 1965, 46 years, there were 16 players who hit more than 50 home runs and 2 who hit 60 plus. The 2, of course, being Babe Ruth and who's the other? Roger Maris, of course. You ever see the movie 61? Story about that. Then, for the next 3 decades, there was hardly anybody who challenged Maris's record. Over nearly 30 years, only 3 players, one being Cecil Fielder of Detroit, who, I think one was Foster for Cincinnati, and I can't remember the other one, who even came close to challenging the record. And all of a sudden, after 94, players started hitting home runs all over the place. So that between 65 and 2010, I didn't include last year because nobody hit over 50 last year. Over a period of 16 years, 24 times the 50 home run barrier was broken. Tells you something's going on. And also the year is important. 94, you probably are too young to remember, but 94 was the year that baseball went on strike. They went on strike in the middle of the year, canceled the rest of the season, no World Series. And starting the next year, 95, there was great concern. Were people going to even show up to watch the games? Because they were so fed up with Major League Baseball having gone on strike. So, along the same time, people like McGuire, Canseco, other players started hitting home runs in copious amounts. And the story goes, although it's all, of course, speculation, that once players started hitting home runs, and the owners who apparently were not oblivious to the fact that steroid use was rampant on their teams, closed their eyes to what was going on with regard to drugs. Because when McGuire started hitting all those home runs in 1998, crowds were flocking. You couldn't get tickets to see a game back in that year if McGuire was playing. That's when interleague play had started the year before. And you couldn't get tickets wherever he was playing. Big money maker. So good reason for owners to hush up what was going on with drugs. So that's the significance of the 94-95 demarcation. Then a couple of years ago, again, Congress got involved when reports came out. We'll talk about that. Well, let's see. This report. George Mitchell was appointed by Congress. George Mitchell, who had been a senator from Maine and was also a well-known diplomat. He had negotiated the settlement with Northern Ireland and Great Britain. and he was well respected. He had been majority leader in the Senate, and he was acceptable to both Republicans and Democrats, and he was the ideal person. He was empowered to conduct a study and basically had carte blanche. Talk to whomever you wish, report whatever you find, and he did exactly that. His report that came out, was it 2007, I think it was? His report named names, reported hearsay conversations, and was very damaging to many ball players, including some of those who had already been suspected. So when this report came out, Congress hauled before it two of the leading baseball players, Roger Clemens and his friend, Andy Pettitte. They had both been friends on the New York Yankees, two highly respected pitchers, destined for the Hall of Fame, perhaps. Well, the damning stories came out from a man named McNamee, who was a trainer, a personal trainer, to both Roger Clemens and Andy Pettitte. And he said that he had administered steroids and growth hormone to both players. And this was reported by the Mitchell Commission, and Congress said, well, we want to know about this. So there were a couple of days of hearings, which had a very great audience. I know I videotaped it, still have the DVD of that. It was interesting from the standpoint of politics. Well, Clemens, of course, denied everything. He denied that he'd used steroids, he denied he used growth hormone, and so did Pettitte, although Pettitte eventually said, yes, I did use growth hormone, but I never used steroids. Well, they were testifying against one another because Pettitte said, I saw Clemens being administered. And obviously that's the end of their friendship. And Roger Clemens is still not out of hot water because he has, in fact, he went on trial last year for contempt of court. And I suppose you could call it contempt of Congress, although I don't think that was the charge, for lying to Congress. Well, a couple of days into the trial, a mistrial was declared. And the lawyers hemmed and hawed about it. And now a retrial has been scheduled for next month. So stay tuned. We haven't heard the end of this one. And it's bound to hit the headlines soon. Yes?
Why do you think Congress should have any say over baseball?
Well, you could ask the question about anything, because Congress can have a hearing about anything that it's concerned about. Now, baseball, of course, we talked about the antitrust thing. And there are many people in the Senate who feel that baseball has an unfair advantage in the marketplace by being an exempt industry. But Congress can hold a hearing on anything. Literally. Anything. Anything a congressman feels is...
You say exempt? Tax exempt?
Not tax exempt, no. Exempt from antitrust laws. And that's a historical thing I explained before. But anyway, this story is still ongoing.